Okay. And we are back. Welcome to the Soapbox, where people who work, volunteer, and care about recovery tell us who they are and what they are most passionate about. My name is Rich Jones, RN, and I represent Parenting Your Child in Recovery.com and the home website, secondstarts.com. That's number two, NDSTARTS.com. Today, my guest is Anna Peshka. Ann is an author, a speaker, a podcast host, which we'll get to later, and a core energy coach. And will help you stop repeating old patterns and release labels that were never yours to begin with and to design the life you actually want. And thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you so much, Rich. It's an honor to be here. I
Oh,
really appreciate it.
this is great. I think we're going to learn. We're going to learn a lot, and your experience is paramount. So, Ann, I start off every show by asking my guests, give me a Cliff Notes version. Your road, what led you right here. Tell me about Ann.
I love this. I love this. So my road I took many different avenues in my road, but it started very tumultuous. I was adopted and raised within a family nucleus that was very abusive. So there was a lot of physical, emotional, and sexual abuse in my upbringing, which of course you take that information and experience and you project it into life and you go down the path of alcohol and drug abuse, self-harm, like trying to do everything I can to stop or diminish the pain was what I was doing. And then you get to this crossroads in life where you have to make a decision. Either I continue down this road that somebody led me on, or I make a decision that I can go down my own road. And that was something I didn't realize I had an option to do. Okay. I really didn't understand because, as a young person, you're processing trauma, you're processing all of this generational trauma, right? So this didn't just happen. My adoptive parents didn't just decide one day to be abusive. These were patterns that they felt within their own upbringing. Of course, I don't realize that until I begin to do the work. Right. So once I decide at the age of 22, after spending many years trying to drown myself, take my life, really just do everything I could to not wake up in the morning, I find myself in my early 20s with a 3-year-old, nowhere to live, no job, absolutely desperate, and I get pregnant again. And that honestly, like you might think that could have been my rock bottom, but that actually was exactly what I needed. To question myself. And for the very first time, I remember sitting there in my haze going, what the heck am I going to do? I've got this 3-year-old who's needing me desperately. And now I've got another baby I'm bringing into the world and I don't even have a place to live. I'm living in a welfare motel and a shelter. So I make the decision to place him for adoption. And that, although that was the most difficult, heart-wrenching decision I've ever made in my life, it was also the most beautiful. Because not only did I give him an opportunity to go on and have a different life than what I was offering, but it put me in a position of making a decision and looking at that 3-year-old who thought I walked on water and say to myself, you know what, maybe I'm not junk. If this little guy believes in me, maybe I am able to be the person he thinks I am. And that, honestly, that was probably one of the most defining moments I've ever had in my life. And that is what opened my eyes to going, do I have to go down the road that was set before me? Or can I pave my own? And that just began my path. And the journey has been incredible. When you hear people refer to the work, and I know working in the realm of recovery, we talk about the work, right? Right. The work is not easy, but it is the most magical experience I've ever had doing the work.
Wow, that's great. Wow, this is a story I can tell already. Okay. All right. Before we move on, I want to tell everybody that if you're the parent, mentor, or practitioner who loves, cares, or works with young adults at risk, in trouble, or maybe currently even in treatment, Parenting Your Child in Recovery.com is a non-clinical option that accelerates and multiplies the results you're getting from your evidence-based treatments and care. And this is the time when I ask you to get up on the soapbox. We're going to go through some here, get some of your mindset delivered to us, and see if we can gather some insight, because you definitely sound like you have felt some real life. So I want to talk to you about it. All right, Ann. So as I say, get up on the soapbox. We're ready to go. All right. This part I love in looking over your thing because I like to comb the website and see what you're talking about. Uh, your past does not define your futures and your choices. You brought that up a little bit, but kind of go into your mindset with that for me.
100%. And I think that when you come from, whether you come from a background as traumatic as mine, or you just come from a shitty childhood, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that if we can all recognize that, hey, these are called tools, right? So our parents or our caregivers are bringing forth the tools that have been passed on to them,
right,
in addition to the ones they've created themselves, right? So that helped me begin to give a little grace. I no longer said, what's wrong with you? Why did you treat me that way? I started to say, what happened to you? And that does not forgive the acts of an abuser. That's not what I'm looking to do here. What I'm looking to do is to grow and to identify that deep within myself, underneath all of that pain that was projected on me, was a person that had desires and dreams. And what I began to do with that is understand that there were labels that were attached to me. There were labels I attached to myself. I felt dirty. I felt not good enough. I felt alone. I felt isolated. And it was when I began to raise my eyes and look around me and get involved in different modalities of therapy, most impactful was group therapy. Mm-hmm. When I began to be in a group of other people that were sharing their story and their pain, I began to go, wow, okay, I'm not alone. Oh my God, their story is very difficult. And look at them, they're still here. Mm-hmm. So I began to recognize that there were patterns that we all brought to our table. And maybe it was just a parent that was very strict on education. It doesn't have to be traumatic. Those are still patterns. Those are still loops of stories that we are telling ourselves. And that is also very much aligned with our self-worth. My self-worth was like almost zero. So I had to work on building that. And I had to realize that deep inside of me was a person that didn't have any choices in the exterior things that were happening. But there also was now a person that did. And that began how I understood that there were things called boundaries. Okay. And they were like emotional fences to protect me from the bad things that could come in. And I still practice that, right? Because boundaries are a practice. You don't ever erect the wall and then you're good to go. You're constantly shifting and growing and you're allocating and your movement. It's like movement, right? I love waves, they're movement. And, so to answer your question, I think that it really was slow self-discovery. It wasn't an all of a sudden Columbus discovered America. It was, oh, wow. Let me get quiet with this for a minute. What does this mean? Where is this going? And that's been a magical journey that I still continue today, getting quiet with myself.
Okay. All right. And I noticed a theme. You can elaborate on this for me, but your theme seems to be, and I broke it down as small as I could, but I see stories, labels, and losses, and I see how you sort of build a framework on that. Talk to me about that.
100%. I mean, our stories are a lot of the ones that are told to us. You're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're not enough. You're not enough. You're not enough, or you're too much. So those are stories, right? And the labels often are not just what other people have put on, but those are ones that we internalize ourselves. And our self-talk is so incredibly important because we can cement what other talk we've heard. So, if a parent to a child, and often this is not even malicious behavior, this is once again the tools that a parent is bringing to the table, right? If you don't get good grades, you're going to fail in life. That often is not with malintent, but that message goes deep. That message goes deep. And now we begin to take that message, and as soon as we get a B or a C, you're stupid. You're not enough. You're never going to amount to anything. You're going to have a JOB, which means you're going to be just over broke for the rest of your life. Someone else is going to control your destiny. Someone else is going to control where you live, what kind of car you drive, because it's based on what you are worth. So when we begin to recognize the stories, and that's where the self-audit comes, right? So I am a huge proponent of the self-audit. So if anybody were to say to me today, "And where do I start?" Right? Because I remember being in those shoes. And back when I began the work, I didn't have the luxury of podcasts. I didn't have the luxury
Right.
of the mental health system in our country. Like, let's face it, it's mad broken, right? Well,
Yeah.
it was still broken when I began to do the work.
Yeah.
I had libraries. I had Dr. Phil on TV. I mean, I had to grapple with information that I could get, but the self-audit was where the root started. Where am I? How did I get here? Very, very, very important. And that's when you can begin to work on those labels and reframe your self-talk, because how we talk to ourselves is ultimately what matters most. Others can talk to us in a demeaning fashion. And for some reason, we just get so used to it. It's not a matter of allowing it. We've just accepted it as truth.
Yeah.
But what we say to ourselves, that's where the true damage really is, or where the release and the freedom is.
Okay.
We choose,
Excellent. Excellent. That makes a lot of sense. And just to taper off the back of that, you mentioned something about, and I can see how this, a lot of this is self-perception. So how do you help somebody, separate or distinguish truth and reality, how they come together?
I love that. I love that. And that's part of my studies with the core energy was, assumptions and limiting beliefs. And then the gremlins, right? So you've got all of these different stories going on inside of you. I love pen to paper, because when we begin to try to do this in our head, we get whirly squirrels.
Right.
A lot of whirly squirrels happen. If we take a pen and paper and we write down, these are the things I think of myself, and right next to it, what proof do I have that that is true? It really gets clear. It really does.
Yes.
Like we use, for example, I am not smart. Where is that proof? And who's gauging that?
Okay. Yeah. It's very simple, but evident. Evident.
Extremely. Pen and paper is so powerful.
I'm a big pen and paper person myself, so I could definitely see how that would work up. And talk to me about energy showing up. Talk to me about that.
Man, I tell you what, if I had understood energy, I mean, I would have studied it just out of passion, right? And I do now. Because now that I understand everything is energy, and nothing really is unless I make it so, is fascinating. So you probably have heard that this is such a fantastic experiment. So they took two Petri dishes of water, regular water, same water. They put one dish in one classroom, one dish in another classroom. And they told the kids in one classroom A, I want you to yell at this water every single day. Say really just mean things to this water every day as you walk by it, right? Just an experiment. Class B, I want you to say kind things to this water every day. I want you to walk by and say something kind every day. What they found when they analyzed the water is the water, which is energy, that got the very poor comments and the mean and the nasty things said to it, had a very chaotic sense of, when you looked at it under a microscope, everything was very chaotic and tangled, hard, mess. But when they looked at the water that people had said kind things to, beautiful designs like a snowflake, everything was intricate, everything was perfect. And if that doesn't tell us something about energy in a proven sense, right? So we all know that we've all had this happen to us. You wake up in the morning, you're late for work, you've stubbed your toe, you've spilled your coffee, and you say to yourself, you know what, today is just the worst day. And what the universe does is it says, okay, because it's very literal, I'm going to hook you up. And I'm going to align you with everything that you just said is going to happen. You want more, it's coming. All of that energy, and it precedes us. So when we've all been in a room where somebody enters it and there's something about that person, they've not yet spoken, but we can feel something either darken and a little bit off, the energy doesn't
Mhm.
feel right, or there's that person that walks in and there's something vibrant, there's light. You
Mm.
can feel the energy. And if we just pay attention to that, everything around us is energy. I know
Yeah.
that's deep, and I
No,
know that it's
yeah.
very difficult for some people to grasp right out of the gate. It's a
Mhm.
practice. If somebody had told me in my 20s, everything is energy, money is energy, I'd have been, you're absolutely mad. Money is something I need that I'm never going to get. Well, that's energy. And
Okay.
you know what? I got exactly what I predicted. None of
Okay.
it.
Okay. That's interesting. I recently had a conversation with an individual who one of the things that he does is cleans homes.
Mm,
Takes junk out, cleans homes. He told me, and he's not really a wouldn't be considered a scholarly type person, but he told me, he said, you can tell when you're looking at an old house and you're cleaning it out, what type of energy and what type of people were in the house just by the condition of the house. He said, and
love
it does, it's not about being clean. He said, but you can actually see and
it. Mm,
a house that had energy and life in it versus a house that was dead. And even though there were people there, he said, and you
so
could tell,
true.
even as a guy that's cleaning up, he could actually see that. You know,
So true.
that was very interesting. I
So
said,
true. And I tell
so
you, that is knowledge that will supersede any scholarly book any day of the week. That's really amazing knowledge that he's got and
yeah,
awareness to be able
yes,
to feel and see that.
exactly. And I'm just going to give a quote from you.
Yep.
Magic is within us.
Mm.
Talk to me.
Yeah, that is something that I never in a million years thought was possible. And the magic within us comes in all different shapes and forms. And it's ways that we are how do I say this where it's going to make the most sense? So we are bringing magic to the table by choice and by default. And when we begin to recognize that we do have that choice to bring the magic, and that could be in something as small as we're in the grocery store and we look over at somebody who just, you can feel their energy is a little off. Maybe they're sad, maybe they're mad, maybe there's something else. Our magic in a smile completely affects that person. Whether we know it or not, it truly does. The magic in other people is what kept me alive. They had no idea. They had no idea. I lived from the magic that somebody would shift my way by either being kind, by saying
Mhm,
something kind, by acting kind, those little bits of magic.
mhm.
You can call them angels, you can call them magic, you can call them whatever, but that is exactly what it felt like. Wow, there's a little bit of magic there. And when I can share mine, because we keep it to ourselves, what good is
Right,
the magic, right?
right,
We want to share the magic. It's like
right.
when you see something exceptionally cool, you see a shooting star, first thing
Mhm.
you want to do is go, oh my God, did you see that?
Exactly.
We don't sit there to ourselves and go,
Right.
yeah, just saw that. We like, please experience this with me. That our magic that we have inside of us is meant to be shared.
Excellent, excellent thought. Um, and last thing on the soapbox, and I felt this in your website. I felt this in your website. Talk to me about this gratitude. It's something we hear a lot, but we should never get tired of talking about it or hearing about it.
You know, honestly, there is only one emotion that can bring me to my knees and actually make me cry, and it's not grief, it's gratitude. And it took me a long time to get there. All right. Because I used to feel grief and I used to feel sadness. And now when and I use my dog as an example, right? I just lost he was like my soulmate. And so when he passed, I immediately went into the human emotion of
Mhm.
grief. Look what I lost.
Right.
But very quickly, and this is only because of the work that I've done, I was able to shift that and go, oh my God, like with such gratitude, with such gratitude. And I used to go to bed at night and I used to say good night and I used to thank the universe. Thank you so much for giving me one more day. Can I just have one more? And it was really funny that you can take every situation Even if my car died, which that just happened too, I had to go buy another one, right? Wasn't on my radar. But with such gratitude that I was able to have that car for as long as I did. So when I look around my world right now, I don't feel those negative emotions of loss. I don't feel those negative emotions of, why did that have to happen? I can feel the emotion of gratitude for the shift in me that is about to happen because of it. It's not always easy. It's not always easy to understand why those shifts are. That's not my job, right? I release myself of the responsibility to understand the ways of the universe. The responsibility that I have is how I operate from within and how I want to feel. And gratitude is really, that is just something that is top every single day. 5 things that I'm grateful for, no matter what, every single day. And I'm telling you, as you begin to do that work, you're going to start with, the things that feel obvious, but you're going to begin to get to the point where I am so grateful that I have a sink that drains the water out and I have more of it. It's a big deal.
Right.
So gratitude is a practice, but I tell you what, it is the best thing I've ever done.
Very, very nice. Okay. Remind everybody, we're going to have in the show notes, I'll give you all of Anne's contact information. We'll probably elaborate on some of her programming so that you want to get with her and, explore, ways to make your own life better. Also, if you're a parent, mentor, or practitioner who loves, cares, or works with young adults at risk, in trouble, or maybe even currently in treatment, parenting your child in recovery.com is a non-clinical option that accelerates and multiplies the results that you're getting with your evidence-based treatments. And we're going to move on to now. I want to talk about some of the projects and some of the things you've done. And the first thing I want to get to is your book. Okay. Talk to me about the book.
Yeah, the book was, man, I've been wanting to do this for such a long time, and I felt it. I felt the shift in 24, and I just went up to North Carolina, got a nice little cabin with my little dog. That was our escape. I run a real estate business in Florida. Okay. That up there was my nature. That was my, hey, you got some stuff that you need to do and the world needs to hear. And the reason that I wrote my book, it's titled Trauma Recycled for a reason. I took my trauma and I turned it into my power and the most amazing parts of myself. Because of the things I experienced, I was able to become this person. And I wanted to share my book, not from like a Netflix series of like, oh my God, look at all the terrible things that happened to me.
Right.
That's such a small part of the book. That is a very small part of who I am. It's what I decided to do, how I reframed all of those things and the way that I live. And that's what I wanted to share, because when I was in the throes of desperation, I'd have given anything for somebody to look down on me, hand their hand out and go, you know what? I got you. You got this. You got this. You are not alone. Big deal. You are not alone. And I wrote the book for the purpose of connection, the purpose of inclusion. I am not alone. I am not junk. I mean, I talk very candidly about the stuff that happened to me. That's not something that's very easy for a lot of people to understand. How can she talk about incest like that without losing her marbles and crying? It's because I've done the work. And the book is about that process. How did I do the work? What were the modalities? It's not a very thick book. It's not an overwhelming book. It's a very raw, real, this is life. This is where you can go with it kind of a book. Okay. And it took me a year, and
I was going to ask
you. Just incredible. I'm so glad I did it. I've put it on Audible. I put it on Spotify. I read my book in a recording studio so that those that, don't feel they want to sit and read can listen to it. And it's in my own voice, which I got to tell you is a level of experience that is hard to put into words. It's one thing to write your story. It's a whole other thing to read it.
Wow.
Out loud.
I can't even imagine. And I would imagine that the subjects you bring up are, to say they're difficult is a gross understatement, but a lot of people would see those things that you write down and are really like adoption, abuse, you talk about incest and things like that. Those are really gravitating words for people who have been through those things,
Yes.
I'm sure just, if they could get a chance to maybe see you and then hear you read those words, I think that would mean a lot to people. Uh,
It does. It
yeah.
does.
How long had you been when you wrote the book? Had you been contemplating writing a book for a long time before you started, or is that something that it came to you and said, you know what, I'm gonna nail the book down?
I had been contemplating it for a long time, but I knew, it's funny. We have that little inner compass inside of us that we
Mhm.
kind of disregard to a big degree. It's
Right.
called instinct.
Mhm.
So I really didn't, I would just kind of say, yeah, I need to write my book someday. And like so many therapists that I had and so many people are like, you got to write a book. But it had to sit, it had to be, I had to get to a place in myself. I had recently divorced. I had recently started a brand new business in an area where I knew zero people. And I needed a massive reboot in my life.
Mhm.
A very successful business that I still have, and that associated to trauma is how I got to be all of those amazing things. That was trauma built, right? The beauty of
Wow.
trauma. And I know it's hard to understand, but once I got to that level where I knew, hey, you know what? You have played badass for a long time. You need to share this with other people. That's when 24 happened. And I was like, you got to do this. And I believe that's why it happened so seamlessly and so
Mhm.
quick. I mean, it doesn't mean there weren't a lot of edits. It doesn't mean there weren't a ton of hours. There was a lot of went into it, but
Mhm.
I armed myself with a really good trauma therapist because I
Okay.
knew writing up my book was going to bring up some things that I wanted
Okay.
support with, right? So
Okay.
I had my tribe and I was like, this is the reason that I'm writing it. My intentions were really connection, right? I really truly wanted to give somebody hope where I had felt no hope before.
Okay.
So
Excellent.
it just happened so perfectly,
Okay.
exactly the way it was supposed to.
And you also have a podcast.
I do.
Talk to me about that. I have not, and I've looked at a lot of stuff, but I haven't looked at that yet. So tell me a little bit about the podcast. What style is it?
I do. I started the podcast because as people were reading my book, they had a lot of questions, and a lot of the questions were they were afraid to ask. And I'll give you an example. One of the most common questions, how could you give your baby away? Right? That's a question. That is such a valid question for people. And it's nice for me to be able to have a podcast where I can bring other folks that are adoptees, other folks that are birth parents, other folks that have gone through, incest or trauma, and people that are out there to shift the world. So the podcast is a platform for me to be able to answer those questions. One, I didn't give my baby away. I made a very difficult decision
Mhm.
for the betterment of a newborn. It's very different, reframe, right? So, and that's not defending my actions, that's clarifying my
Right.
actions. But the podcast has been awesome in the sense that I don't want people to feel afraid to ask me a question. I'm not offended at questions. When they're curiosity based and they're learning and they're not with malintent, questions is how we learn and connect. Because if somebody asks me a question, how did I deal with suicidal tendencies? And I'm able to answer that honestly, that very well may help that person who could have their hand extended.
Mhm.
Do you know? So the
Yeah.
podcast is really a platform for us to be real and to get back to like, hey, understanding no one is coming to save you. So if you are looking to change the trajectory of your future, it's up to you. The choices. We are where we are because we choose to be. That's hard to understand. And a lot of people are going to push back on me and go, I didn't choose poverty. Well, is this true?
Okay.
Let's
Yes.
think about that seriously. Like, is this true?
It's
What
true.
have you been telling yourself and what have you accepted?
Okay. All right. And I want to thank you for being here today. In the show notes, we're going to get some contact information in, and let me also remember that we talked about author. You're also a speaker, so you're available for speaking.
Mhm.
Okay. Do you put YouTube videos out and things like that?
I
didn't
do. I
think
do YouTube videos.
Okay. All right.
It's a whole different aspect, right? So I sold everything I had in July.
Mhm.
Everything I had, everything that didn't fit in my Subaru at the time, gone.
Right.
And now I live very intentionally wherever I am. I am currently
Okay.
right now in sunny Florida because it's March. I'm no
Okay.
fool. Um,
Okay.
I travel everywhere and as
Oh,
often as I possibly can. So the YouTube channel is going more down that direction. How can I be 60 years old and want to travel and get out and do it? Let me show you.
I love that. And thank you so much for being here with me today and giving us your insight. Uh, it means a lot. And especially, we're going to put that stuff up, and especially people who can identify with your book. I really think that they should, you know, take part in that and I urge them to get in touch with you. I really do. So I want to thank you for being here. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Rich. Thank you. It's
Okay.
been a pleasure. Thank you.
Very, very good. So, in closing, I just want to tell everybody thank you for being here. And I want to remind everybody, always imparting, I want you to get out there and help somebody get better, help somebody stay better, and most importantly, let's help somebody be better. Thank you.
Bye-bye.